Hello and welcome to another episode of a Simple Path to Wellbeing podcast. My name is Paul Garrigan. And what I want to talk about today is the wrong kind of trust and acceptance. And this is something I've wanted to talk about for a while because it's quite important. At least for me it was. Now we're in the middle of a bit of a storm here in Thailand, so you may hear some rain and thunder in the background, but I kind of like that sound, so I hope you do too. So what do I mean by the wrong kind of trust and acceptance? The thing that got me thinking back to this today was I came across a comment someone left. I don't know why it caught my eye, but it just caught my eye, this comment that someone left on some kind of one of these open posts. I'm not quite sure where I came upon the comment, but the gist of it was it was this woman and her husband has left her, and she's obviously in a lot of distress, and he's gone off with another woman, and I think some time has passed already. I don't know whether it's weeks or months, and there's no sign of this guy coming back. And she's obviously a religious person, quite a religious person. And she says she's just going to trust God to send her husband back. And I get it. I get that this woman is in a lot of pain. And I get I suspect she's tried everything she can to win him back or get him back. And now she's dependent on her, belief in a God to kind of send them back. It's been sort of childhood when I kind of gave up the idea of a kind of interventionist God like that. But I've certainly kind of had a similar, made similar appeals to the universe. This idea that if I just trust the universe, it will give me what I want. And that approach never worked well for me. And it's not what I mean by trust. See, for me, trust is not about dictating some plan and then waiting back and trusting that that plan will unfold somehow. See, I think the problem is that we have this strong idea about what needs to happen for us to be okay, and that may be, getting a partner back or getting a partner to even begin, or it could be getting a certain job or, things working out in a certain way. And we have this clear idea of what needs to happen. But then we reach a point where it's quite obvious to us, or it becomes obvious to us that there's nothing we can actually do to make that happen, that everything we try to make that happen doesn't work. So then we can appeal to this kind of higher authority to make that thing happen. And for me, that is a very desperate situation, a very powerless situation, a very weak position to be in. And it never worked in my experience. It always ended badly. It always ended up in despair. When I talk about trust, I'm talking about something very different. To me, the trust is in life to do whatever it wants to do. And the trust is in my ability to deal with whatever comes my way. And it's based on the recognition that my ideas about what needs to happen are just ideas. And they're pretty worthless when it comes to actually dictating what happens. They're just ideas. And often what I found, the things that I think I need to make me okay aren't the things I need to make me okay. Because the being okay is not about, ticking off a list of things that we not want or need. It's this ability to be with whatever arises, to be with whatever happens. That's what being okay is for me. And when I have that as the thing, then it becomes very doable. In fact, it becomes guaranteed. The thing about ourselves And we tend to become very, very trapped by our thinking. And much of our thinking is around what needs to happen or what we'd like to happen. And this puts us into this very, very rigid box. And it makes our own abilities very limited. So we see ourselves in a certain way, we see the world in a certain way. And as a map of reality, that can be quite useful. The problem is, though, when that starts to dictate things and we enter a situation where our map just doesn't work anymore. And because our map doesn't work anymore, we feel despair. But the problem is the map. We are capable of far more than we could ever imagine. We've got all of these resources, these abilities to think in different ways about things. And that's what's often required. It's not so much that the situation is impossible as that our usual way of coming at the situation just isn't appropriate. But because we can kind of end up being a one-trick pony, we keep on coming at it the same way because we assume that's our limitations. We assume like that's the limitations of the situation, but they're just things we've put there. And so trust is this allowing for all our resources to become available. The resources of the body. They're the resources. And the resources of the body are not dictated by the limits of the thinking mind. That only happens because we put that limitation in place by believing in the thinking mind. So again, this trust, when we talk about trust or when I talk about trust, or similar idea with acceptance. Acceptance can actually be a very bad thing sometimes when we accept what the thinking is telling us. When the thinking is telling us that there's nothing we can do, that's not a good thing necessarily to accept, because it can mean we're just stuck in this very, very limited way of seeing things. And to accept that could lead to pretty bad consequences. We often associate or assume that acceptance means passivity, but it absolutely is not passivity. Which is often the wrong response. Often we do need to actually do something. It's like something needs to happen. Like if people just accepted things, nobody would ever escape addictions. Nobody would ever escape the pain they're in or the terrible situation they're in. They would just stay there. That's not a good type of acceptance. For me, that would be a very bad kind of acceptance. So when I talk about acceptance, what I mean is accepting the situation that's presenting itself right now. That there's absolutely nothing to be gained by going into conflict with what's happening. It's about working with what's happening. Not going into denial about what's happening. Not going into this state of simply complaining about what's happening. It's a case of, well, this is what's happening now, so how do I respond? And luckily, this response, if it's a novel situation, that's not going to come from our thinking usually, that's going to come from something deeper. Because the thinking is always about these recognizable situations and recognizable responses. So I do hope that kind of made sense. Thanks very much for listening. As always, if you'd like to do some coaching with me, you can find details in the show notes or in the description below. And I'll see you again.